Merry Christmas and happy holidays from Good Vibes Gaming. I love this time of year. I love the cozy vibes, the good food, the holiday movies, the video games. Yeah, that's right. Video games have always been a big part of the holiday experience for me. Every Christmas, there was always at least one game I was hoping to see under the tree. I also enjoyed the times I got to spend playing video games with my family. That's not something that we typically did, but for some reason around the holiday season, people wanted to play Wii Bowling. I've been getting more sentimental now that I have a 1-year-old daughter, and I want to share those memories with her. And as I was thinking about that, I was like, well, why not share those memories with you? So I've gathered up the GBG crew to talk about some of their most precious holiday memories. This is our gift to you.
Most of my favorite holiday gifts have been from my wife. We've been together for around 15 years now, since we were young teenagers. And so when I think about all the presents that I've received over that time, I think one comes to mind in particular. So for most years, she'll say like, what do you want for Christmas? Is there a certain game you want? But one year, she didn't do that. I remember coming home from my retail job at the time and seeing her watching game collection tours and just videos about rare games. And she knew that I loved the Sega Saturn. And there was one game in particular that I just wouldn't buy myself because of how out there it was. And that is something that's always on my shelf. Panzer Dragoon Saga, one of the most valuable and one of the best games on the Sega Saturn. I loved Panzer Dragoon. I had Panzer Dragoon and Panzer Dragoon 2, but Saga was something that I just wouldn't go out there and buy for myself. Now, this was around 8-10 years ago now, so the price wasn't like it is today. I think she paid around like $150, maybe $200 max for this, which is still a lot of money for one game. But nowadays, Saga is worth so much more. But I think that's the reason I cherish this so much. Not just because it's valuable, not just because it's a great game, but because I didn't ask for it. She was just genuinely interested in something that wasn't a regular present, wasn't something I'll just buy for myself on a whim. It's a very special one. And it's because I didn't ask for it in the first place, I cherish it even more because she knew this is something that I would want without saying it's something that I would want. And yeah, this has gone down as one of my favorite games of all time. I love it so much. It's just a genuinely fantastic game. And I wish more people could play it. Maybe in the future. But the source code has been lost to this specific version. And there's so many core vibes that are tied to the technical limitations they had. So I don't think you can ever quite replicate Panzer Dragoon Saga. But at least, maybe in the future, more people can play this wonderful game. But yes, this is my favorite holiday present of all time.
When I think about the holidays and what the most memorable gift I've ever gotten was, my mind always goes back to December of 2001. That was the year that the GameCube was being released. And that's also back in the day when I couldn't get a game console just on my own. Way back then in 2001, I had to wait for someone else to help buy that for me. And unfortunately, I couldn't get it at launch. But something that I did get early on, my birthday is December 9th. So it's just far away enough that my parents like to be cute and get something that would be one part on my birthday, the next part on Christmas. And so I had gotten on my birthday the game Super Smash Bros. Melee, not the GameCube. I had just the game, and so I had to hold on to this for like 2 weeks or so until hopefully, maybe on Christmas, I was gonna get a GameCube. I actually remember seeing underneath our Christmas tree, there was a very suspicious square-looking box underneath the tree. And I kid you not, I've never really told this story many times before. I took a thumbtack, just like this one, and I etched at the very corner of the gift. Santa's gonna be so disappointed in me right now. I etched at the corner and I peeled away just enough so that I could confirm, I could make sure that I was gonna get a GameCube for Christmas. And lo and behold, I think I etched the corner of the box that had like a bunch of copyright stuff, and I did see the word Nintendo in there somewhere, so I was like, this has to be it. And so I flipped it over. I made sure the corner wasn't seen so that when I tore it open in Christmas morning, no one would ever notice. And I got myself a GameCube. It's not this one in particular. They didn't have platinum back then. This is a monstrosity of a GameCube, by the way. I have so many things stuck on this. Unfortunately, my Indigo GameCube ceased to read discs after a certain point, and so I had to toss that one away, which I'm really sad about. I wish I had my original Indigo GameCube, but I do have the controller. I still have, and I've now actively adjusted this so I can use my original Indigo GameCube controller for things nowadays, but also to help alleviate the fact that I had to wait for so long, I also, on Christmas Day, was also given Luigi's Mansion. And so I didn't know about this one. I knew the GameCube, but I didn't know that this was here. So I still had a bit of a Christmas surprise that night. But of course, I went to Melee first because this game is very important to me. It's one of my favorite consoles, if not my favorite personally. Even though I don't have that GameCube anymore, it's really the thought that counts and just the feeling of getting a new console that winter, because I had Nintendo Power Magazine. I knew all the stuff leading up to its release. I was super hyped for it. And as someone who only owned the N64, the idea of getting a newer console, a bigger and more powerful console with graphics the way that Melee showed off, I was just really excited. I think the GameCube specifically was the point that I really knew I wanted to pursue something, anything with games as I got older. And it's just a huge pillar for me in my life. So yeah, it's been so many years since this little portable lunchbox came out, but it's going to be always one of my favorites and one of my favorite gifts ever.
You'd think with video game Christmas memories, it'd be old stuff for me, childhood memories that really stand out, and a lot of those do. I have a lot of great Christmas memories. I made out very well as a child during Christmas, mainly because all of my grandparents had divorced and remarried. So I essentially got 4 sets of grandparents' gifts. And that pretty much would last me for the entire year, anytime around. So I get my gifts at Christmas, and I'd be playing those games up until my birthday and the next Christmas. So a lot of fun memories, a lot of ways to get new games and experience some, and I made out very well. And though I remember very specifically certain things, other ones include getting my Nintendo. I got it at 4 years old, got it to the NES, and I have so many vivid memories of playing the NES at Christmas, playing Duck Hunt on the old CRT in my grandparents' house because they're the ones that got it for me, which they kind of regret. But it's something more recent, a more recent tradition that sadly I'm just not able to do anymore. And I think that's what makes it all the more special. For those of you who followed me before, there was a tradition every Christmas that I would get together with my grandmother, specifically my mom's side, and we'd just play a game. It started out, oddly enough, because of Duck Hunt, one of my first games I ever played, but Duck Hunt ended up on the Nintendo service. So it came out on Christmas one year, so I had to cover it. This random IR activated version of Duck Hunt that was released on the Wii U. So I brought all my recording stuff and everything I needed to do a video on the game, and brought it to my mom's house as she was cooking things up and getting things ready. I just needed to get this video out. This is just how the work culture was. So while I was there, my grandmother was just hanging out on the couch and watching, and I'm like, okay, it's Christmas. You can hear people cooking in the background. My nephews are running around. I'm not going to get a professional level of audio quality out of this. Might as well just have some fun with it. So my grandmother joined me and just played and, watched me and commented. And I was like, you know what? We also have, I think, Kirby's Adventure. Let's see how my grandmother does playing it herself, because she's never really played games before. And so I did so, and people loved it. They loved my grandmother playing these games with me. So it became a tradition for the next 4 or 5 years that I'd go to Christmas or the Christmas event, bring all my recording stuff, and record a different game with my grandmother every Christmas. And it never blew up into huge degrees, but there was a lot of people who was like, oh, it's around Christmas. Is Derek's grandma going to be there? Are you going to do a video with your grandmother? And I'm like, yeah, she absolutely would love that because she loves hearing how well the videos did. She loved seeing the comments. She felt just delighted to be there, and she's still around. She's not passed away or anything. The problem is that she's up in Pennsylvania and I'm currently in Virginia, and lugging all that stuff around as well as all my stuff for my kids is not as viable anymore. It's just harder to do. And she's asked about it a few times, but it's just like we just don't get a chance to get up there in the same way, and we can't record. She misses it, I miss it. It's not really something that's probably going to be able to happen again unless significant things change, but it's just the way it is. I really loved all those games that we played together, and I always wanted to try to shock people by having her play something like Doom, because they'd be like, your grandmother would be so upset by Doom. I'm like, no. She watches like the most R-rated action movies and loves them, so she'd be delighted by Doom. I'm almost sure of it. But I just never got the chance because it was easier to just take up other systems and have them record. The PlayStation 4 was never easy to move around, at least for me, so it just never ended up happening. But man, I would have loved to shock people by showing off Doom, but it just ended up being other systems, and that's fine. It's the way it is. But yeah, that's just, it's still a very fond memory, and I'm so glad that so many of you who've followed me for so long enjoyed those as well. Just made me delighted and happy to do that every year, something to look forward to. So thank you for sharing in that memory.
Being a big fan of video games during the 90s and early 2000s could often be a very lonely experience from a family perspective. You're viewed as an outcast, you like this weird nerdy thing that you're not supposed to like, and it could make it difficult for me to connect with the other members of my family. But there was always one person I could rely on, and that was my cousin. My cousin Daniel, who's not to be confused with the Daniel on GVG. We used to play a lot of video games together, and the holidays were always a big opportunity for us to do that. And one of my favorite memories with him was when I got my Nintendo DS and New Super Mario Bros. And that holiday, when he got his Nintendo DS, we both played New Super Mario Bros. Mario versus Luigi. I don't envy people who haven't had the opportunity to play this mode. It's so much fun. I remember it feeling very slapstick as we're running across the stage, bob-omb in hand, throwing it, accidentally catching the one that got thrown to you, and then having it blow up, thus you dying and losing the star to your opponent. It's just a lot of fun, and we spent hours, and I mean hours, playing that mode, just laughing up a storm in my grandparents' basement during the Christmas season. But it only got better in the following years because of the Wii. Everyone knows that your grandma and grandpa love playing Wii bowling, and so did mine. My grandpa played the Wii at my house for the first time, and of course we played Wii Sports, and Wii bowling was an absolute hit. So much so that he went out and bought his own Wii. This man who just doesn't play video games at all now owns a Wii. And unlike a lot of other people I've met who got into gaming because of the Wii, he actually bought games. He didn't just have Wii Sports, there were a bunch of other games he wanted to get as well. There was a lot of it shovelware, there was like a shovelware hunting game and whatnot, but I was just excited to see him excited about playing games at all. What's interesting about that experience is that he ended up loving the Wii so much that he started playing other game consoles too. He had an N64 in the house, I don't even really know where he got it, but he had GoldenEye. So me, my grandpa, and my cousin started playing 3-player GoldenEye. That was my experience playing GoldenEye for the first time. And there was something so fun about just running around the maps, constantly killing each other, laughing about it, no one being even really that good at the game at all. It was an even playing field. We played with big head mode, we turned on the paintball mode, we had fun. I had never gotten to experience that level of casual, fun gaming with family members before. And that was a really, really special time for me. It was a joy for me to share my love of gaming with family, and for them to finally recognize what it meant to me and to understand why it was fun. I was used to adults looking down on me for my enjoyment of video games, but to have my grandpa start playing and enjoy himself, and then want to start gaming on his own, was a really special experience, and I wouldn't trade that for the world.
As a kid, I was almost never more excited than I was for Christmas Day. The prospect of getting gifts from my loved ones, and especially those gifts possibly containing new video games or even consoles if I was really lucky, was exciting to me. And I'm lucky and blessed that I have so many positive memories of the holidays with my friends and my family. But one of them stands out more than others. As a kid in the 80s, getting games was difficult, because there wasn't a lot of information out there, especially for parents at the time, to really make informed decisions about what to get for a kid. Sure, picking up something like Mario was easy, but what if you wanted something more obscure, or what if you already had those Mario games? Parents didn't really have a lot of information, and my mom, bless her, would always just go out to Toys R Us and ask the person at the counter what the popular game of the time was, and that would usually end up being what I got. That was easy enough for her, but my abuelita, who was another generation removed from gaming, was very confused most of the time, and for most of my life she just stayed away from video games, and I can understand why. By the time the 80s had come around, she was in her late 50s, and she just couldn't make sense of what the hubbub was about when it came to video games. She knew that my brother and I loved them, and she knew that it was basically our primary hobby, the thing we loved to do the most. In fact, she helped us by getting us video game magazines so that we could read up on games. But all of it kind of escaped her. So every year she would bring me the Sears catalog, and she would just ask me to circle stuff that I wanted. And for the longest time, she was just against the idea of buying video games. She didn't think that they were real gifts. She didn't like handing me over something that would attach me to a screen. And as someone who is much older now and is a parent, I understand where she was coming from, even if it felt a bit backwards at the time. But one year in particular, she decided that it was time to get on board, and I'll never forget how I felt when I opened a box from my abuelita, and under the tree I found a copy of Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Mega Man X4 for the PlayStation. I was blown away because she hadn't given me the catalog that year. She hadn't asked me anything about what I wanted. And it meant the world to me, because not only were these video games the first that I think I'd gotten in my whole life from my abuelita, but they were really excellent video games, games that had strong reputations inside gaming circles at a time where she just didn't have access to this information. The internet, she didn't have access to the internet. She didn't even have a cell phone. So the fact that she researched and figured out what to get almost meant more to me than the games themselves. And unfortunately, over the years, over the decades since I got those games, I've lost those original copies, but I've since repurchased them on Switch and on PlayStation, and every now and then I just pick them up and play them to remember her. Unfortunately, she passed away several years ago, so I'll no longer have any new memories with her, but I'll always cherish the ones I have. Those days playing those games, just sitting in front of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, trying to 200% the map and collecting every weapon, fighting every boss, and just scouring every inch of that castle, reminded me every moment of just how much she loves me. And I just can't imagine what it was like for her to go out and just kind of be, at that point, an old lady trying to figure out what to get her grandson for Christmas, what gift to give somebody who was so entrenched in gaming that she just wanted to make me happy. And she, of course, did, as she always did. But the holidays are special to me, not just because of this one memory, but because of all the moments I got to spend with friends and family. But gaming has been a central part of the holiday season for me for my entire life. My first Christmas that I can remember, I got the Sega Master System from my mom. And subsequent years after that, when we knew that there was a new console out, my brother and I would just ask for that. We'd ask for a Sega Genesis or a Super Nintendo, or even a PlayStation 1. And my parents and my grandparents always came through for us and made sure we had something to play on Christmas Day. And because of that, I now have a tradition with my family where I like to make sure that everybody I give a gift to, it's something they can actually have fun with on the day, so that there's something they can do when inevitably everybody starts to get tired from all the gift and eating and all of the stuff we do to celebrate the holidays. So I'll always cherish so many memories, but my one with my abuelita, that year that I got Castlevania and Mega Man, will always stand out to me as something truly special, even among years and years of very special holiday memories.
Well, the holidays are here once again, as evidenced by my Santa hat here, you can tell. But with the holidays here, that means it's time for the GVG crew to recount and reflect on some of our favorite, most treasured holiday gaming memories. And now it's my turn, Ash here, to talk about some of my own favorite holiday gaming memories. And I'm going to go back to one specific one that I think none of you might really be expecting, given my usual taste in games. But, even though I started off as a Nintendo kid, I got in on the Sega train pretty early. And of course, the Sega Genesis came out here in the US in November of 1992, but I didn't get one right away. It wasn't until sometime during the following year that I tried Sonic 1 for the first time at a friend's house. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my god, this is so cool, this is next level. And then of course I started hearing about Sonic 2, and I was like, oh man, I really want a Sega Genesis with Sonic 2. And thankfully my dear grandparents on my father's side came through for the holidays that year, and it was either that year, 93, or maybe the following year, 94, but I'm gonna say it was 93. But either way, my grandparents on my dad's side got me a Sega Genesis bundled with Sonic 2. And of course, blew me away, made me a lifelong Sonic fan. Obviously, y'all know I love the blue blur. I'm about to go see Sonic 3 in theaters tonight, actually. I'm so excited. But yeah, so I got it with Sonic 2, went back and, played Sonic 1 properly on my own system later on, but that's not what this video is about at its core. So one of the games I got with, or I should say my dad got for the Sega Genesis once I got mine, was NHL 93. And that is a game that, so my dad's like a huge sports fan, right? I'm not so much. I grew up watching hockey with him, but, he's like a hardcore hockey fan, and I'm just, I'm not a sports guy really. But he and I played so much NHL 93 together, not just over the holidays, but it was also one of our holiday games and growing up. And it's not the only game we played together over the years. I mean, we also played a lot of Pilot Wings, like the original Pilot Wings, the original F-Zero, Star Fox 64 together, but I think the game that I have the clearest and most vivid memories of playing with him over the holidays is NHL 93. And later on, he also really got into virtual racing, so we also played that together, but really NHL 93 was the one for us. And it was fun sharing in my dad's love of hockey in a medium that was more tailored to me, being video games, of course. And so we just played a lot of NHL 93 together. And even though I'm not a sports game fan, or a sports video game fan, something about those classic hockey games just hit different, and we had so much fun. And he was really competitive from what I remember. I think I did win most of the time, or at least the majority, but he put up his own fight for sure. And yeah, just when I think of holiday gaming memories, I always go back to my dad and I playing NHL 93 together. And it's just something that's really near and dear to my heart. And I thought it would be a fun story to share because, again, given my usual taste in video games, I kind of feel like none of you are expecting me to share a sports game memory of all things. So yeah, but thanks for watching the video. Thanks for listening while I share my memories, and I really appreciate you all. Bye.
I'd love to hear your gaming holiday stories. Was there some game or console you were really hoping for that finally got at Christmas, or was there just some special gaming experience that you shared with someone during the holidays? Let us know in the comments below. I hope you have a great holiday season and that you're safe and you're warm, and most importantly, that you're having fun. It's been a pleasure for the last year to get to be here and help share good vibes. I look forward to continuing to do that in 2025. Thank you so much for watching. Keep the games good and the vibes greater.